After taking a modeling job, a woman wakes up with a masked man who knows everything about her. As her release hangs in limbo, she realizes her captor wants more than just ransom. On Monday morning, a car pulls up in a silent transportation hub and drops off Jessica, a model arriving for a scheduled photo shoot. As she steps out, the stillness around her feels unsettling, so she checks her phone and calls the number she was given, but no one answers. Alone and unsure that she's in the right place, she takes a quick selfie and posts it to her Instagram story with a brief caption to mark her confusion. With no response, she starts to wander, hoping to find someone or something familiar. A short distance away, a warehouse gate begins to roll upward, catching her attention. Compelled by a mix of curiosity and urgency, she approaches and steps inside, calling out in hopes that someone might hear her. Without warning, someone appears behind her and plunges a syringe into her neck, making her body go limp as the substance takes effect. As Jessica is pulled swiftly into unconsciousness, a mysterious stranger places her in his vehicle. Todd, the man who abducted her, sits beside his accomplice who drives the car. Though silent, tension lingers between them as the captor's conflicted demeanor doesn't go unnoticed. The driver senses his hesitation and silently judges him for growing too soft. Without saying much, he makes it clear that his services are no longer needed from this point on, as per their boss. Their tense standoff is suddenly interrupted by a loud thud from the back of the car, forcing them to pull over. Todd steps out, walks to the trunk, and opens it, finding the model awake. Her eyes flutter, unfocused, and her mouth is taped shut, a faint hum of protest escaping her lips. Jessica meets his gaze for a brief moment, a silent reminder to be quiet if she wants to survive. Then, without a word, closes the trunk again. When the two finally arrive at the house, Todd's ally reminds him that their partnership is over, but the captor believes he can't handle the situation alone. The anonymous man, who feels indifferent, simply instructs him to go, so he leaves, seething with frustration. On Tuesday, Jessica wakes up in an unfamiliar room, her hands shackled to the bed frame, restricting her movement as she spots a small basin of water nearby. Thirsty and desperate, she attempts to reach it with her mouth, but her restraints prevent her from getting close enough. The anonymous person, still hidden behind his mask, enters the room and notices her struggle. Without a word, he nudges the basin closer to her with his foot. Calmly, he asks if the woman is hungry, and she nods in response, so he silently leaves to prepare her food. While the masked man is away, the model screams for help, but she stops when he returns, carrying a bowl of food. Meanwhile, Amber, Jessica's friend, grows anxious after receiving no replies to her messages. She contacts a police officer, but the cop suggests reaching out to her modeling agent first. Back at the secluded house, the anonymous perpetrator returns to his captive and informs her that she's been listed for auction, starting at $30,000 for the upcoming Sunday. Shocked, she demands to know what he wants from her, so he replies that it depends on the highest bidder. He then offers an alternative. If she can get a wealthy relative to pay $250,000, he'll set her free. The model, holding back tears, says she has no one. When she breaks down crying, the man cruelly mocks her, saying she should start preparing for her new owner, then leaves the room. Meanwhile, John, Jessica's ex-lover, calls the woman's mother, Sally, worried after not hearing from her. The mom brushes him off, saying her daughter is likely on a work trip and that he's no longer a priority in her life. The man then asks about his son, Zeke, but she coldly replies that the boy will only see him on Sundays, then ends the call abruptly. Back at the house, Jessica asks if he'll let her go now, but the masked man replies that he can't, revealing he's under strict orders from his boss. The model taunts him, saying his master will profit more while he takes all the risks, but the guy remains unbothered and simply walks out. Elsewhere, Amber calls her friend's agent, Al, who reassures her that she's fine. This relieves her, unaware of a truth that is far more sinister. Back in captivity, Jessica begins to manipulate the situation by trying to build trust with her abductor, complimenting him and calling him cute. Emotionless, he removes his mask for the first time and introduces himself as Dan. Curious, the woman asks why he chose her, but he explains he didn't. Instead, she was selected by an organization called Dark Plague, which auctions off beautiful women. Pretending to be flattered, the model feigns surprise, claiming she's not really special and thought she was the only one. Dan admits she is because she's the first woman he's ever revealed his face to. The captive continues to play along, asking how many times he's done this, so the guy admits he's done it before. He assures her that he has no intention of hurting her and promises that his job is to keep her safe as long as the police stay out of it. When the news finally reaches Sally through Al, she prepares to call the police, but he quickly warns her that involving them could endanger her daughter's life and says they need to come up with $250,000 as ransom. The mother panics since that kind of money is impossible for her. Furious and overwhelmed, she demands that the agent do something for her child, then hangs up. On Wednesday, Dan informs Jessica of the bad news that no one has offered a ransom for her, not even the modeling agent who took her in. Meanwhile, Sally remains in contact with Al, determined to find a way to involve the police without tipping off the captors. She resolves that if no progress is made by Saturday, she will go to the authorities herself, no matter the risk. Back at the secluded house, Jessica reaches her breaking point, and as her fear hardens into anger, she confronts Dan. She mocks his role in this operation, calling it pathetic. The abductor's calm facade cracks, and he defends himself, claiming he's just doing a job, one he believes is the only thing he's capable of. He tries to shame her in return, calling out her work in the adult industry and suggesting she's worse than him. The model doesn't back down, so she tells him she was also just doing her job, and at least the men she worked for paid well. Then, an idea strikes that if all of this is about money, maybe she can use her following to raise her own ransom. Dan immediately dismisses the idea, warning that anything she does online could be traced. But the woman keeps pushing, asking to borrow a device to log in and make money fast. When he refuses again, she accuses him of being just as much a prisoner as she is. He scoffs at the notion and reminds her that he has orders to follow. He even brags about his value to the organization, calling himself a major asset. Their conversation grows heated, voices rising, until a sharp knock echoes from the front door. Dan quickly tells her to stay quiet and goes to check. Outside stands another masked man, silent and still, so he fires a shot into the air, forcing the stranger to back off. When he returns, the captive asks about the gunfire, her voice shaking from fear. The guy calmly explains it was someone who wanted her, but wasn't willing to pay. That realization hits hard, and Jessica finally begins to understand how dangerous her situation truly is. Fear creeps deeper into her chest, so she pleads with him to stay with her and keep her safe. That night, she cries softly in her sleep, while her captor, for reasons even he can't explain, sleeps beside her and gently wraps his arms around her. On Thursday morning, Jessica wakes to find herself handcuffed to the bed again. Dan, once more wearing his mask, informs her that he's heading out. She says she needs the restroom first before he can leave, so he uncuffs her. Inside, she steals a glance out the small window, but there's nothing but trees and dirt, no houses, no roads, and no hope. She returns to the bed without resistance, and the abductor restrains her wrists once more before locking the door behind him. As soon as he's gone, she struggles against the cuffs, twisting and pulling, but it's no use. Elsewhere, Sally finally calls John and tells him her daughter is missing and being held for ransom. The man is stunned and asks why she hasn't gone to the police, so the mother explains that the captors will threaten her life if the authorities get involved. Desperate, she pleads with him, telling him she has no one else to turn to. John, calm but concerned, agrees to help and asks for everything she knows so far. Back at the house, Dan returns with a hygiene kit and fresh clothes. He tells Jessica she needs a shower because she stinks. Though embarrassed, she's grateful, so she thanks him sincerely and steps into the bathroom. The captor lingers outside the door, catching glimpses of her silhouette through the frosted glass. He briefly admires her figure and turns away, unable to admit his attraction for her. When the model steps out, she smiles at him again and thanks him once more. The guy stares at her for a long moment and murmurs that she's worth more than $250,000. So she asks what he thinks she's worth, which makes his expression shift. But instead of asking her question, he recuffs her wrists and walks away, ignoring her. In a flashback, Amber brags to Jessica about a wealthy man who pays for everything from rent to luxury vacations. She urges her friend to consider doing the same, but the model doesn't respond right away as she thinks about it. She presses further, reminding her pal that it couldn't be worse than staying with John, her ex-boyfriend, who had cheated on her. The single woman eventually admits she's thought about flirting with a rich old man just to make ends meet, but she's content with her current life. Jessica states that she has her family, her career, and most of all, her baby. The tension breaks as the two burst into laughter, clinking their drinks together and finding a moment of lightness in their shared struggles. They joke about how hard life can be when you're pretty, but they own it like a badge of honor. Then Amber confesses that the simps who worship them keep their worlds spinning. But even so, the model says she doesn't want to depend on that lifestyle, no matter how broke she gets. Back in the present, on Friday, Jessica sits across from Dan as they share a quiet cup of coffee. The captor tells her that no matter what happens, he's going to deliver her to the Sunday event. He mentions, almost casually, that he'll need to sedate her again, just like before, so she doesn't resist. The captive, half joking, suggests she could just go willingly, but he immediately shuts the idea down, saying that it's not how the organization works. She then teases him, calling him a stalker for knowing too much about her life. The guy corrects her, calling it research since he's the one assigned to handle her. Without warning, he slides something across the table toward her, a compact military-grade weapon. Jessica reaches for it slowly, unsure, but Dan urges her to hand it back quickly. He then picks up the sharp tool himself and offers to teach her how to use it. They step outside, and under the gray afternoon sky, he calmly demonstrates techniques. Jessica follows, and for a fleeting moment, the air feels almost normal between them. The man tells her she can keep it, but while she hesitates, her fingers tighten around the weapon. A flicker of temptation crosses her face as she imagines what it would feel like to drive it into his neck. But before she can act, the guy takes it back, knowing full well what she was thinking. On Saturday, John rides his motorcycle back to the exact location where his ex-lover disappeared. He then spots a photographer shooting a different model nearby, but when he approaches, the man waves him off, not wanting to be disturbed. Undeterred, he begins to search the area, scanning the perimeter and checking the corners of the building for any trace of the missing woman. His persistence pays off when he notices her phone lying in the dirt and picks it up. Determined to dig deeper, he returns to the photographer, this time more forceful in his questioning. He asks who rented the space before, hoping for a lead, but the man claims to know nothing and brushes him off again. John steps away out of frustration but thinks of an idea. He calls his friend Ned and asks him to hack the phone he just found. His pal agrees to do it, so he drives straight to his house. Meanwhile, at the secluded house, Dan and Jessica lie silently on the bed they now share. The abductor begins to talk, revealing more about the organization's rules and the strict guidelines they follow when selecting women for auction. The model listens, then confesses something that breaks the silence. She has a son named Zeke. The captor's demeanor changes instantly, and he snaps, refusing to believe her. He accuses her of lying to manipulate him, but the captive tearfully insists it's the truth. Still disbelieving the woman, Dan storms out, saying it's too late to care anymore, leaving her sobbing alone in the room. Back at Ned's place, John finally arrives with the phone. The hacker becomes frustrated when he realizes the device belongs to Jessica, thinking that his friend is already done with her. The man urgently explains that she's being held hostage and that she's about to be sold in an underground auction. Though hesitant at first, the hacker agrees to help, realizing this may be their only chance to save her. Back at the secluded house, Dan tells Jessica with a heavy heart that he still hasn't heard back from Al. If nothing changes by midday tomorrow, then her fate will be sealed. He admits there's nothing more he can do to save her, and despite everything, says he's glad to have met her and wishes her the best of luck. Early Sunday morning, Ned finally breaks through the network. Then he traces the last number Jessica texted and pinpoints a possible location. John, filled with urgency, decides to head there immediately and convinces his friend to come with him. Meanwhile, the captor returns to Jessica and says her agent finally agreed to wire the ransom, but he thinks it's too risky and insists it must be paid in Bitcoin. The model lashes out, furious that her freedom is being delayed over technicalities. Out of options, she uses her charm to attract the guy. As he lets his guard down and gives in to the temptation, she makes her move, stabbing him and making a run for it. Soon after, Dan's associate arrives and finds his wounded partner. He chases after the escaping captive, firing shots into the forest. As Jessica runs deeper into the woods, she stumbles upon other masked men and quickly changes direction to avoid them. At the same time, John and Ned get pulled over by a police officer for speeding. Suspicious, the officer takes his time to investigate, delaying their pursuit. Back in the forest, the associate carries the bleeding man to the car, trying to chase the model. On the other side, the ex-lover and his friend finally reach the captor's house. They find a trail of blood on the floor but no sign of the missing woman. Elsewhere, Jessica emerges from the woods and finds a roadside bar. She walks in, orders a drink, and takes a breath, finally free. The news of her escape spreads like wildfire, with media outlets debating whether her story is true or an elaborate publicity stunt.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.